What's up, guys? Hey, I'm super excited. I'm looking forward to it. I've been nervous, been excited, but you guys know I usually bring a joke like every week. This week, I actually just have, as a joke, I have a picture. Can we throw that picture up there? Check this out. So this is me, my senior year of high school in show choir. Let's go to that next one. Look at this face that I was making. Look at that. Baby face Zach. This is my senior year, so this is like almost 4 years ago. Man, it's gone by fast. But since this time, man, guys, this has been a time in my life where I've grown a whole lot in my walk with Christ, and I've grown. I've gotten to grow with you guys, a lot of you students here, and I've loved every bit of it. But in my, we can go and throw up that La La Land slide. But in this, like my senior year, I started to develop this love for music. I started to develop this love for kind of theater and that kind of stuff. And when Mitchell was like, hey, I want you to do an At the Movies. So I was like, all right. Like one of my first top picks was La La Land. And I don't know if you guys have heard of that movie, but it's like one of my favorites. So La La Land is kind of a musical, but I wouldn't even really call it a musical. I mean, yeah, there's music in it, but it's one of my favorite just movies about life, about relationships, and about kind of going through seasons of life and having specific seasons in life. And so this story picks up with Mia in the yellow dress and Sebastian, who's looking good over there, Ryan Gosling. So anyways, so these are two struggling artists in Los Angeles. And they are both, Mia is an actress, and Sebastian is a traditional jazz piano player. And both of them have this super deep passion just to do what they love for a living. So Sebastian, he wants to eventually open up his own jazz club, and Mia wants to be an actress. And they're kind of in Los Angeles, and they're in Hollywood, and they're doing their thing, and they're constantly surrounded by people who just are there to make a name, like just to be famous. And they don't have a passion for it, and they don't have they've kind of lost their sight in why they're doing it, and it's more about making money or making a name for themselves, you know. And throughout this whole movie, you see these two awesome, super awesome, really talented artists. And so this is kind of their story, and I'm going to kind of explain it and also tie in some biblical principles that I've kind of extracted from the story. So let's check out that first clip, and we'll see when they first meet. Ouch. Man. Let's give it up for Ryan Gosling. I mean, just come on. Wow. Hey, fun fact about this movie. Ryan Gosling, every time you see the character Sebastian playing piano, it's actually Ryan Gosling playing. He had never played piano before getting the part for this movie, and he learned everything. Like every single piece of music in this movie where he is playing, he was actually playing it. I thought that was really awesome. I was watching behind the scenes, and I was like, oh my goodness. But so in this scene, you see Sebastian, who is like obviously like just a crazy pianist, and this guy he's doing a little gig at a restaurant. He's playing Christmas music, and he just kind of does this improv like jazz piece that he just kind of works his way through this Jingle Bells or whatever it was, and he gets fired for playing that awesome piece of music. Like every time I watch that, I'm just like, oh my goodness. But despite what this other guy, the manager was telling him, he was doing what he loved. He was doing what he was meant to do. He was meant to play music and perform for people and make beautiful music. And then unfortunately, this rough start, you see Mia, and he just blows her off completely. But like Sebastian does, we need to do as Christians as well. So my first point is to stick to who you are despite what the world tells you. You know, guys, like what Mitchell was saying after worship is that, man, our identity is in Christ. It is who we are. It is we are set apart, and we have to stick to that. And we have to constantly embed that within our thoughts, within our actions, that we are children of God. 1 Peter 2:9 says, "But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light." Man, like what we are his special possession. We are his chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation. Like, that's a lot for, like, when I think about, like, when I'm feeling bad or whatever, or if I'm getting down on myself, I'm like, man, I've been called apart. I've been set apart. I've been called to something greater than anything I could possibly do on my own. And like what Sebastian was doing, he was doing something completely different than what the world was doing. And a lot of times we cannot go with the flow, guys. We cannot always go with the flow, because the only thing that goes with the flow are dead fish. And I love that saying, because if you're not standing out, then you're never going to make a difference. So how do we do that, okay? Romans 12:2 says, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. This is what we have to do as Christians. We have to, every single morning, we have to wake up and say, okay, God, I'm doing this for you. I'm doing this for something greater than just me, what I can do on my own. This is why we do it. This is why we wake up. This is why we talk to people. This is why we love on people. Because when we don't, man, we're just going with the flow. We're just playing jingle bells and not playing a beautiful piece of music. So this scene, after this part, they continue to go on their own little path for a while. And so Seb is struggling for money. He's not paying bills, and Mia's going around and trying to get as many possible shows as she can. But unfortunately, it's not really working out for either of them. So Sebastian takes a gig playing in an 80s like cover band, and he's working a party in Los Angeles. And guess who's there? Perfect Hollywood writing is Mia. Mia's at this party, and she sees him playing some 80s music and realizes it's him. And she kind of scolds him for being such a jerk to him at the restaurant before. And then they kind of start talking after that, and then he walks her to her car after that, and there's this awesome scene. But they get to know each other. They start spending time with each other, and they're both like, okay, these people are just like, everyone is just out to make a name for themselves, and everyone's trying to they're not even sticking to who they are. They're not even sticking to their passion. And one of my favorite lines in this movie is Mia and Sebastian are talking, and Sebastian's is talking about Hollywood, and he says, they worship everything and they value nothing. Like, that's just, I think Hollywood is like, when you talk to someone from another country, they're like, oh, Hollywood, like that's what Los Angeles, New York, but it's one of the things that really sticks out. And our society, I feel like this is a great representation of our society. They worship everything and they value nothing. Man, that's like, it's so true. And they're surrounded by these people in this movie that value they worship everything and they value nothing. And me and Sebastian continue to just grow with each other, and then of course they start dating, and they start to just really encourage each other's dreams. Mia is saying, hey, you need to open up your jazz bar or your jazz club. And Sebastian is saying, you need to pursue everything you possibly can in the show business because you're great at it. Mia developed this passion for performing from her aunt, who was traveling in a theater all across Europe. And they end up hitting it off, and they end up just pushing each other to be who they are. And let's check out this little montage of this season of their lives. Man, I love this summer montage. It just really shows, man, how beautiful life can be, how exciting life can be, when you have people around you that build you up and that make a difference in your life. So here you see Sebastian, he's encouraged Mia to just, go for it. Go for your dreams. Go for your show. And so she ends up doing it. She ends up writing the show and spending a lot of time doing it. And she encourages Sebastian every step of the way, saying, hey, you need to start your club. You need to start your jazz bar. And so this is what we need to do in our lives, guys, is we need to surround ourselves with people who are building us up. So surround yourselves with people who build you up. In Proverbs 27:17, it says, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. We all know that verse. But there's a reason people use that verse so much, is because it's so important in our lives. If we're with someone who's making us dull or making us or tearing us down, then we're going nowhere. Like, we're literally going nowhere. We're just wasting our time and wasting each other's time. And there's been times in my life where I've spent a lot of time with people who I didn't need to be spending time with, or friends or being in relationships that I shouldn't have been in, or having friends that I shouldn't have been in, or being in places that I shouldn't have been. And why did this happen? Because I didn't surround myself with people who sharpen me, who make a difference in my life, who build me up. Instead, I was being exposed to the ways of the world instead of not conforming to them. And I was conforming to them. So me and Sebastian continued their relationship, and Mia's continued working on her show. And actually, right at the end of this scene, we didn't see it, but Sebastian runs into one of his old buddies from school. They went to music school together, and his name is Keith. And we kind of get some hints that earlier before Keith had like ripped off or done something bad to Sebastian. It didn't really ever say that, but we kind of get some hints. And so Keith's like, "Hey man, I'm starting this band and we need a keyboard player." And so Sebastian's like, "Well, I guess I'll go. I need some money," because Mia was saying, "Okay, well, how are we gonna get? How are you gonna start your place, your jazz club if you don't have any money?" And so he says, "All right, well, maybe I can start making some money from this band." And so Sebastian starts to go, and he goes to this band rehearsal that they have, and he's like, "Hey guys, what's up?" And Keith's talking to him, and they start playing. And it's really cool music. It's some jazz and stuff. And then like the chorus starts going, and it's like this dubstep jazz stuff. And then Sebastian's like, "What? Like, this isn't what I signed up for." But he ends up like saying, or like at the end of it, Keith's like, "Yeah, man, we'll pay you $1,000 a week." And so he's like, "What? $1,000 a week? All right, I'll sign up, dude." So he ends up signing up for something that he didn't like with people who he didn't like just for money. Like, how many times do we do this in our lives? It's like we do things just because the world is saying, "All right, this is what you need to be successful. This is what you need." And we do things that go against what God has instilled within us. It goes against our identity. And so Seb signs a record label, and they become really popular. They start touring the country. And this whole time, Mia's working on her show. And this one night, they get into it, and it's like a week before a show. And he's like, "I'm going to be on tour and all this stuff." And so then he's on tour, and he comes back in town, and Mia's it's the night of Mia's show. And Sebastian's like, "All right, guys, I'll see you later after not worship practice, after a band rehearsal." And so then Keith's like, "Hey man, you going to be here tonight Sebastian's like, "For what?" "For our photo shoot." And so Sebastian's like, "Oh crap, I have this obligation to be with this band. I've signed a contract with this band." So Sebastian ends up missing Mia's show that she worked so hard on, that she spent months writing and months preparing, and he misses the show. So then we go to Mia, and Mia is there, and she puts her heart into the show. Curtains close, lights come on, and there's like 5 people in the crowd, and Sebastian's not there. And this is like a really heavy scene, because like everything, like these characters that we've come to kind of love are kind of falling apart. Their relationship is falling apart. And in our lives, we can do this so much. And I've seen it so much within my family and my friends, is that we spend so much time doing things that don't matter. And we miss the people who are right in front of us that we love the most. We miss things, and we say things, and we do things. And this is exactly like us. Paul says that we do the things that we hate. And Sebastian, he doesn't like this music, and this person that he loves, he misses everything she's been working on. He misses it. And so he runs back to her that night, and he runs into her after she's leaving the theater, and she's just devastated, and she's so angry at him. And after this conversation, they end up breaking up at that night. And Mia says, "I'm going back home. I'm done. I'm tired of putting myself out there and being rejected every single time." So Mia ends up heading back home to Colorado, and a couple weeks pass, and Sebastian gets a call from an agent that was actually at Mia's show, and she's like, "Hey, Mia hasn't been answering my calls. Can you get a hold of her?" And of course, she didn't answer his calls, so he drives to Colorado she gets a call back from this upcoming director, and she goes in for an audition, and it's really promising for this audition. But the catch is that they're sitting there talking, and she says, like, if I get this, I'm gonna have to move to France, because that's where we're shooting, is in France. And he tells her, like, despite everything that they had done wrong to each other, they had said mean things, they'd said hurtful things, despite everything, Sebastian says, if you get this, you've got to give it everything you've got. Everything you've got. And so Sebastian, despite everything, he still builds her up. Despite their differences, despite their disagreements, he still builds her up. And they're like, well, we don't know what's going to happen between us. And so that scene ends, and we fast forward 5 years later in the film. And I know I'm breaking this down like every single piece, so there's huge spoilers around the bend. So Sebastian is in his jazz club, and he's getting ready for the evening. And we see Mia, who's her first film was a huge success, and within these last 5 years, she's become extremely popular in Hollywood. And then we see her going home, and she's walking into her house, and she's greeted by her husband, a new guy, and who we hadn't met. And she's greeted by him, and they end up. And they go to their daughter that they have. So Mia is now married and has a kid. And they go out to dinner for that evening, and they say, oh, hey. And her husband says, look, here's the jazz club. And they walk in, and here's what happens. And so a lot of times when things don't go our way, we can just completely just replay the things that we wish, how we wish things could have been. But that's not really how God works. I think that even when things don't turn out the way that we want them to, God still works through that. God still works through our pain, our suffering, our mistakes, our whatever. God still works through that. And people are like, I hate this movie. It's the worst movie ever. It's so sad. I mean, yeah, it's kind of sad, but also look how beautiful that is even though things didn't work out between Mia and Sebastian, they both still achieved their dreams. They both, despite everything, they both still reinforced and made and helped make who they are and build each other up. So I know I kind of already said it, but my point 3 is that even when things don't turn out the way we want, God still works through it. Proverbs 3:5 through 6 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. You know, there's been times in my life where I just really didn't understand what was happening. I didn't understand why this was happening, or I didn't understand why this had to happen to part of my family or to me. And, you know, I just had to rely on God I completely had to rely on God during that season of my life, or during those seasons of my life. And when I've done that, I've begun to build this relationship with Christ that has allowed me, even when things don't work out the way I want them to, is that I can still rely on God because I know that he's got a much bigger plan than what I can even comprehend. What I can even imagine is God's doing, God's using it. And I tell you what, guys, is that once we do this, we develop this peace that transcends everything we can possibly understand. Psalms 85:8 says, I will listen to what God the Lord says. He promises peace to his people, his faithful servants, but let them not turn to folly. Man, whenever we're obeying and abiding in God's presence, is that we have this peace that he promises us. This peace that despite this season, despite what's going on, we can still trust in him during that. And something that I've learned and I'm continually learning is that when I trust in God, I begin to have this just this thing inside me that I can just be okay no matter what, no matter who's wronged me, no matter how I've wronged people, as I can still rely on God through that. And man, guys, I know, and this movie it just relates to me on so many levels. It's beautiful, it's romantic, it's musical, it's about life, it's about just about relationships. And I feel like all of us can relate to it too. Maybe not the musical part. I know some of you are probably like, oh gosh, is this scene still happening? That last scene. But that's one of my favorite scenes in the movie. It's because it's a beautiful scene. And sometimes is that you might be asking, okay, well, how can I get that peace? How do I rely on God even when things don't make sense, even when things aren't going my way? I'll tell you how you can rely on God. Romans 8. Oh, wrong side. Romans 12:2 says, do not conform to the ways of this world, but be transformed. Guys, we have to transform our minds by continually, every single day, submitting to what he has for us, every day. Because when we do that, then we get to develop this peace, and we get to further our relationship with Christ, and we get to surround ourselves by people who are building us up and not tearing us down. And when we do that, guys, things just start to make sense. Our paths begin to straighten. So tonight, man, if you guys are saying, okay, man, I want that. I want to just continue to rely on God. I want to just continue to build my relationship with God. Guys, we're praying for you tonight. So let's go ahead and bow our heads and close our eyes.